Okay, well, good morning. I'm Duke Castle with the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, and welcome to our third EV event, the first one we're doing remotely. Um, we know from experience that the best way to introduce people to electric vehicles is to give them the opportunity to actually ride and drive one. But of course, with the pandemic, we're not able to do that. We did that the last 2 years. So we're doing what we're calling a virtual ride and drive. And our format for today is, first of all, to provide you some background information on the current state of electric vehicles. Then we're going to show a short video on what riding in an EV is like. And you're going to be sitting in the passenger seat and seeing what goes on. And then we're going to hear firsthand from 4 local EV owners. They'll briefly talk about their experience, but they're also going to be available to answer questions. So feel free to use the Q&A on your Zoom. Maybe it's at the bottom, maybe it's the top. Hopefully you can find it. Submit those anytime. And then when we actually get to them, if you have a question for one of them specifically, just let us know that. We'll try to ask them to answer it. And so let me. First of all, who are we? Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. We were founded in 2013, basically to provide ongoing support for sustainability awareness and activities in our community of Lake Oswego. We have a number of different action teams. We have 30 plus community partners. And this event actually comes from one of our action teams, the climate team. It comes out of a climate action plan that was developed by us in the community and in our city. We're also just delighted that Portland General Electric continues to be our sponsor. And as you can see, EVs are a very important part of what they're doing. Ultimately, to deal with climate change, one of the key strategies is electrify everything. And there are a number of places to do it, but certainly electric vehicles is a key part of it. And then the other part is to go towards renewable energy. Well, PGE is already at 50% renewable energy and is targeting to get to 100% over the next few decades. We're also doing this as part of National Electric Drive Week. It started last weekend. It's going through this weekend. There's a number of events. You can go to their website if there's other things that you're interested in. And this is the second year that we've done that with them. So we're delighted to do that. Well, a discussion about EVs actually starts with the recognition of what we've all experienced with the pandemic and COVID-19. And that is, when we have fewer cars and vehicles out there driving around, all of a sudden we see what clean air looks like. And what that's made clear to us is how quickly air pollution can decrease when we significantly reduce the burning of fossil fuel. And what we need to understand, though, is the damage from that pollution is more severe than many of us realize. There's a study that was done by MIT that notes that vehicle pollution alone accounts for 58,000 premature deaths annually in the US. Now, when you compare this to the 34,000 car deaths that occur annually, that means you have a 60% greater chance of dying from vehicle pollution than you do from a car accident. And that pollution doesn't just stay in Lake Oswego. It spreads throughout the region, contributing even further to the higher impact of air pollution on people of color. With the greater impact that COVID-19 is having on that segment of our community, it's even more important that we accelerate our efforts to clean up the air for both its immediate health benefits and the longer term climate change impact. So what I want to do now is have a little survey here. So you should all be seeing this and take a moment and give us an idea of just where you are on this. So let's see. Well, we've got, oh, pretty close. We got 85%. We're gonna, well, maybe that's what we're gonna get. Okay, good. So let's end the polling here. And let me share the results. And as you can see, we've got an audience that's got a pretty good idea of this, but would like to learn a little more, which is just great because that's why we're here. And we do have a number of people that own EVs. When I looked at the registrations, it was maybe 20% or something like that. It's 19. Okay, well, that's pretty close. Okay. So let me stop sharing the results. And let me turn this off. Okay. Well, some of you will know this. Let me get this screen down here. But let's just cover some of the basics. That electric vehicles basically come in two types. One group is just all battery, all electric. There's no fossil fuel involved. The other is a plug-in hybrid. And this is different from the Prius hybrid. Plug-in hybrid is where you've got a larger battery and you do plug it in, you charge it up, and you can drive on just the battery until it runs out. And then there's a gasoline engine that cuts in. And so that's good for people that are concerned about taking longer trips where we find a place to do it. But, and also who had some anxiety about range. What we're finding, though, is because the range of vehicles is increasing, there's actually a market shift now more towards all electric. And yet, when we look at why people who haven't bought EVs, what are their objections? There's two. There's more than that, but the ones that really come up to the top are range anxiety. How far can I go before my car runs out of electricity? And will there be a charger available when that happens? And the second is, boy, the cost. Aren't these cars only for rich people? Well, initially they have been, but both of those issues have changed significantly. What's changing them is the decreasing cost of batteries. Batteries cost account for about half the cost of making an EV. And as you can see, this declined from $1,100 a kilowatt hour down to $153 a year ago. And the thinking has been when we get down to about $100 a kilowatt hour, then the cost, the purchase price of an EV will be comparable to gas cars, commonly referred to as ICE or internal combustion engines. Well, anybody that watched Tesla's Battery Day last week would see that they're quite ambitious. They plan to cut this number in half, starting within 18 months and be in full production in about 3 to 5 years. So they're looking at a battery cost down to $50, $60 to $70. Well, there are two benefits that come out of this. One is increased range. And indeed, when EVs first came out, Nissan Leaf was very prominent in this. Started at about 50 miles, gone up since then. And in fact, as you can see, the current Leaf, actually the 2020 Leaf, is up well over in the 200s. And in fact, now really the threshold is virtually anybody coming out with an EV needs to be in the 200, maybe the 250 range. Tesla's up over 400. There's some other cars coming out at 500. So the idea that the range won't be there or won't be affordable is actually changing considerably. So what about charging your car up? Will there be enough chargers out there? So let's just take a moment to understand what the issue, basically what chargers are. And there's what's considered 3 different levels. A level 1 charger is 120 volts. This is the current you already have in your house right now. That's fine if you don't go very far because it charges maybe 3 to 5 miles per hour. So if you're doing 10, 20 miles a day, that's probably fine. But with the cars coming out with 200 plus miles, you really want to be looking at a level 2 charger, which is 220 or 240 volts. And you very likely already have that in your house because your dryer and your washer most likely are using that. So that's the kind of thing that you'll use in your garage. These will charge up 30, 40 miles an hour. So you plug it in at night, and basically you start each morning fully charged. The third group is level 3 is a DC fast charger. This is a charger that can is a much higher voltage, 250, 400, now some at 800 volts. And so you can charge about 80% in maybe 15 or 30 minutes, depending on the voltage level of that particular charger. And what you see, if you're a Tesla owner, you see superchargers everywhere. You can basically go anywhere in the United States and know that there's a Tesla supercharger. And that these are all level 3 chargers. You can also end up staying in a motel at some place overnight and find out that there's a Tesla level 2 charger. But what if you don't own a Tesla? Well, that's chargers are proliferating everywhere. This is just here locally. The green chargers are level 2. The orange is level 3. And level 3 chargers now are being put across America by Electrify America. They're taking money from the Volkswagen Dieselgate problem that they had. And now you can drive across the US just using Electrify America chargers. And here in Lake Oswego, first of all, we now have more level 2 chargers in Lake Oswego than we do gas stations. But we also now have Electrify America level 3 charger at the Bank of America parking lot at A and 4th. And if you follow this at all, what you see is chargers are being added every day. There's a website that shows just on the Tesla chargers, every day there's 2 or 3 being added. Well, the other issue is cost, and that's changed considerably too. Yes, these cars were expensive, and you can still spend a lot of money for an EV if you want, but the cost has come down significantly. With the Tesla Model 3, you can get that for $35,000. If you go to the website, you're going to see it says more like 39, but if you go to the showroom and ask for it, you can get it for $35,000. And there's a state rebate incentive of $2,500 that brings it down to $32,500. Tesla doesn't qualify for the $7,500 that of the federal tax credit, but many others do, and Nissan is one of those. So you look at the Nissan Leaf with a suggested price of $38,000, they qualify for the full $10,000. The $7,500 from the federal government, $2,500 from the state. So now you're down at the $28,000. And you don't have to stop there. The cars have been out enough now that there are very good used cars. There's an auto dealer, McLaughlin, Platt Auto. These prices come from them. You can get a 2014 Leaf for $7,500 with 88 miles, but you get a Chevy Bolt 2017 for 237 range and 17,000. That's basically half of what it cost new. And if your income for a family of 2 is less than $88,000, you also qualify for an additional $2,500. So you can begin to look at this. Now the Model 3 comes down to $30,000. The Nissan Leaf at the 2014 is at $5,000. So these things are much more affordable. And that doesn't even get into the much lower operating cost. There's virtually no maintenance on these cars, and the cost of electricity is about 70% less than what you spend on gasoline. On an electric car, you'll spend about 3 cents a mile. For gas, depends what the prices are, but 8, 10, 12 cents a mile. So you can see here, we're saying, well, with an electric, and if you drive 12,000 miles a year, you're looking at $360 a year for fuel, whereas you're looking at $1,200 for gas, but it's the maintenance. There's virtually no maintenance that involved in an EV. There's no spark plugs, there's no oil, there's no fan belts. Basically, all you've got is rotating your tires, maybe your windshield wipers. AAA, on the other hand, says that the average maintenance for a ICE or gas car is $1,200. So now just annual savings is $2,000 a year. Well, that makes these things much more affordable. And if you're looking for a variety of cars, first of all, there are 40 different EV models available in the state of Oregon right now, but we're already seeing small SUVs and trucks coming out. Tesla's got their Model Y. You're going to hear one of our speakers will talk about his Model Y. There's Hyundai Kona is a crossover with about 250 miles and about 38,000 before credits. So, Kia is the Niro Kia is right in that same range. So you can be looking at these things right now. And, if you're concerned about the rapid change in this, what a lot of people do are leasing EVs. And one of our speakers, in fact, will talk about that, so that you can get in on it right now. And then you'll have a choice in, say, 3 years. You want to keep that car, purchase that, or move on to something else. Well, here in Lake Oswego, we've got hundreds of people that have purchased EVs. In the last year, we had almost 3 times as many new EV registrations in Lake Oswego than we did the year before. I don't know what it's going to be like this year, but people are catching on that there is something here that's worth doing. And so is the city. The city formally adopted their sustainability and climate action plan this last spring. EVs are an important part of it. The city has purchased about half a dozen Chevy Bolts. They've installed chargers around the city. There's one on A Street that's free for anybody and it's used fairly frequently. But city employees are actively using this. Rachel Sykes is the person at the maintenance center that oversees the program for the city. This is a quote from her. She said, "These EVs have been a good way to get staff exposed to electric vehicles, how they work and what it's like to drive one. The results have been great. Everybody that drives the Bolt really likes them." So, and I've been spending a lot of time with the chief of police, and he's ready as soon as they get a SUV certified. So the real thing, though, is what is it actually like to drive in one of these? And at the end of our presentation today, I'm going to tell you actually how you can do this yourself. There are contactless test drives, and I'm even going to tell you how you can enter a contest we've got going where you can, if you win this, you'll be able to get a Tesla overnight for 24 hours. But in the meantime, sit in the passenger seat and just experience what it's like to actually ride and drive an EV.
Hello, I'm Duke Castle with the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. In the past couple of years, we've had electric vehicle ride and drives when you've actually been able to get into a vehicle, find out what it's like, and drive it. Well, we can't do that with the pandemic right now. So instead, we're going to give you an opportunity for a virtual ride and drive. And today, we're going to use our Tesla Model 3. What all these cars do, and certainly the Tesla, is you use your phone to operate it. It's what opens the car up. You can set the heating on a cold day before you get in the car. And what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to summon the car out of the garage. And go over it and then take a ride and drive. You can see the Tesla's very cautious, as it should be. And you can program this as to how far you want the car to go out. What's unique about electric vehicles is the motor's on the wheels. There's no engine up front. So what we have instead is something that's called a frunk, which is a storage space up in the very front. And here, what we're doing is we're storing emergency supplies if we happen to need these. But as I say, everything else is controlled by the phone. Just walking up to the car, we'll unlock it. As soon as I get in, it knows what my seat settings are. Well, one of the first things you notice when you get in a Tesla Model 3 is the minimalist design. Everything's controlled by the screen. You start, first of all, by setting what's called the quick controls. You can set your mirrors left and right, set the steering wheel up and down, and then up above here, and we can see this, I can set this for my own setting. So for Duke, it records all that and uses that as my driving standard. And then there's the navigation feature. My daughter lives in Oakland, so I can say, navigate to Oakland, California. And what it's doing is the computer is figuring all this out. Touch that, and now it shows me where I need to stop.
Now turn left onto Palisades Terrace Drive.
Yeah, and given where I am now, the car's about 50% charged. I would need to make 3 stops going down there. Very nice feature. What I should mention, if you look up above here, you'll see a red dot. That's a camera. There are 8 cameras in the car, 12 sensors, and as we're driving along, it monitors all of this. So it takes pictures. In fact, we go back up here, and I can view. Here we are driving along. This turns out to be really quite useful if you happen to get in an accident, because this gives you some idea of what the circumstances were. Here's the front camera, the rear camera, the right and the left. And many times this has been used in traffic court to help people understand exactly what the real circumstances were. Here I'm using the front camera. So with that, let's get out and start to take a drive. And driving is very simple. You put your foot on the parking brake, push the lever up to get the car in reverse, and start to back out. And it is very quiet, very quiet. One of the things about a Tesla, or almost any EVs, they're quiet, they're smooth, very comfortable. And what you also discover is that they're really fast. This car will go from 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds. And EVs, as we mentioned, have been thought of as being expensive, but this car now starts at $35,000, and with incentives, another $2,500 off from the state rebate, that brings it down even further. But the other EVs qualify for federal tax credits, so you can get $10,000 off of an EV, which can bring it down into the mid to high 20s. And there's even a low to medium income tax or state rebate of another $2,500. And with that rebate, you can qualify for that rebate for a family of 2 if your income's under $88,000. So with that, you get this Model 3 down to $30,000. People ask how much electricity, what does our electric bill run? You know, it's probably between $20 and $25 a month more from what I've been able to track. So it's really not that expensive. And I'll tell you, it is really nice not to go into a gas station anymore. And it's really nice to know that we're not polluting, that the air has gotten fresher. And with COVID-19 right now, that's a big deal. Another thing that people will ask about is, what about the screen here? You know, it's off to the right. doesn't distract you. And actually, I can sit, the speed is 32 miles per hour. It's really not much different than just looking right up ahead here. So there's really not much change at all. The other thing, though, that with a Tesla is they update this software over the internet, and so the features of the car just keep improving. And one of the things that they've done is added voice commands. Let me get past the stop sign and I'll demonstrate that. So I push this button down and I can say, turn on the air conditioning. Enabled air conditioning. Set the fan speed to 9. Maybe you can hear that. Turn off the air conditioning. Very nice feature. So you don't even have to mess around with the screen. You can use the voice commands to do most of the things that you want to do. And since my phone is hooked up to this, I could say, call Jan Castle. Her phone number comes up, our mobile phone, our home phone. I can pick which one. I'm not going to do that. I'll get rid of that. But I would say all of this is really nice. So, the car is fun, it's fast, it's a real pleasure to drive. It's made trip driving fun again. So we've begun to take this on trips down to Oakland to see our daughter and different places. And with a feature called the autopilot, where the car basically will drive itself on the freeway with just hands on every so often. It's a very relaxing experience. Another thing that many people aren't aware of as a benefit of electric vehicles is how incredibly safe they are. There's no engine up front to ram into you in an accident. The batteries are underneath the car, making it very stable and not to tip over. One other feature that's unique to electric vehicles is something called regenerative braking. And that is when you take your foot off the acceleration pedal, just like that, you can feel it slowing down. What it's doing is it's putting energy back into the batteries. For a lot of vehicles, like the Tesla and the Bolt and the Nissan Leaf, it enables you to do something called one pedal driving, where you don't even need to put your foot on the brake. And I'll demonstrate that right now as we're coming up to this turn. I just take my foot off, the car slows down automatically. Gonna turn here. And in fact, as I go down this hill, as I take my foot off the brake, take my foot off the acceleration, the car just stops. So you never need to put your foot on the brake itself. So here we are, almost home. So let's go in and charge the car up.
Okay, now we're going to talk about charging your car at home. And it's really pretty simple. Virtually every electric vehicle manufacturer will provide you a cord and cable with plugs. One will plug right into your wall socket, 120 volts. And that's fine if you don't go very far during the day, don't have many miles to charge up. But with longer range cars now, 200 miles more, you want to go with 220 or 240 volts. And that's the kind of thing you're already going to have with your washer and dryer. So you get an electrician to come out, put a wall socket in, plug it in, and you're ready to go. We're doing something different though. We've gotten a Tesla charger, and the reason is it charges 50% faster, like 40 miles an hour. 40 miles an hour.
plug it in, we're ready to go. So in a few hours, we'll be done. And the other thing we can do with this is we can set the time of day. So with cheaper rates at night, we can set it for that. It's that simple. And almost everybody charges their car at night. So you leave in the morning with like a full tank of gas. So thank you for taking the ride and drive with us.
Okay, well, Tesla's not the only car that's out there. We also have additional videos, ride and drives, on our YouTube site, a Nissan Leaf, a Chevy Bolt. And we also have a great story from a Lake Oswego resident, Davina Doby, about how she felt her EV saved her life. She was hit, let me just show you this. Her car was hit broadside by a semi-truck going 65 miles an hour on I-5 down in Medford. She wasn't hurt, her son wasn't hurt. Tesla has a connection to every car through the internet, so they were able to immediately tell her that the car was safe to drive home, which she did, and then took care of it after that. So I would just recommend that if you have a moment, you really ought to hear her story firsthand. Well, we're fortunate to have 4 EV owners that we're going to hear from. Let me just quickly introduce them, then I'm going to get off the screen share mode and let them come up. We have Mary Radcliffe, who is driving a Chevy Bolt. We have Mike Perham, who just purchased a Tesla Model Y. Tom Atwood and his wife Dorothy got a Nissan Leaf on a lease. They'll tell you about that. And Bob Sack got a plug-in hybrid, the Mitsubishi Outlander. So let's go off that. And if each of you can turn on, there we go, there's Tom, and there's Mike, and we're waiting for Bob and Mary. There's, and let's see, so Mike, and I need to get your sound up. And, okay, and here, we got Bob. So, Mary, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is Mary Ratcliffe, and I live in Lake Oswego. I bought the Chevy Bolt EV in 2018 because I wanted a car that was better for the environment. I waited for the EVs with a larger battery because I wanted a car that I could take out birding to places like Mount Hood or the coast, and I didn't want to have to stop for charging during the time that I was out. I bought the Premier Edition with more safety features, and it also purchased the DC charging option so I could take the car on road trips. And that means that I can do fast charging during the time that I'm driving down somewhere. My car is really great on the road, on road trips, because it handles so well. Its biggest drawback is that the Chevy Boat's navigation system, unlike Duke's demonstration where he showed how his car would automatically figure out what stops to take, I need to use the apps on my iPhone to basically plan out my trip and understand where I'm going to be doing the charging. I use apps like the Chevy's My Chevrolet and ChargePoint, which give a lot of information that I can use, but I can't be driving during the time that I'm using that. And then I also have to do a little bit more planning of the navigation and where I'm going to be going to a charge station. We don't have as many charging places as the Tesla does, but as Duke was saying, that network is being built out really fast. So I didn't have any problems being able to go to Santa Cruz or to Spokane. In summary, I just wanted to say I really like my Bolt. It's a joy to drive.
Great, Mary, thank you. Tom, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so back in 2015, my wife and we needed to get a new car, and we were looking for kind of a sedan, smaller car, and to replace a similar car. And it turned out in 2015, there were only 3 electric options. One was the Leaf with about a 90-mile range. The other was the Tesla X, which is a big SUV, which was too big and also quite expensive. It's a $100,000 car. And then the Tesla X, which was quite expensive and a little bit didn't quite fit our needs. So we decided we weren't sure if 90 miles was going to be enough, and we weren't sure about this electricity issue. And we also knew that new models were coming out quite soon. So we leased our car, and we had a 2-year lease. We looked at it as sort of a try and buy. If after 2 years we decided we didn't like it or we wanted to get something different, it was very easy to move on. As it turned out, after 2 years, 2017, we still had only 3 options. Get another Nissan Leaf or a Tesla S or a Tesla X. So we actually, Nissan gave us basically an offer we couldn't refuse to buy out the car. So we purchased the car outright, and the total cost was $15,000 with the lease and the buyout payment. So $15,000 got the car. And we actually still have that car. We have 53,000 miles on it. We enjoy it very much. It is, of course, not the car we're going to take to Spokane or Santa Cruz like Mary does, or over to Central Oregon. But about 80% of our driving is in the Portland area, and we can do all of our Portland area driving. When I was working in Hillsboro, I could actually drive out to Hillsboro, commute out there, come back home, go downtown for some activity, a show or a restaurant or something, all in one day, plug the car in at night, and in the morning it was charged up. In terms of maintenance, I have gone in twice for maintenance in the car, and it's cost me a total of about $500, and that's it. Basically over 5 years. It's tire rotation, a new wiper blade, and recently, because of the smoke, a new filter for the cabin air filter. So we love the car. We have no plans to replace it for the next few years. And leasing was a great option for people who are just a little bit worried about is it going to be right for me.
That's great, Tom. Thank you. Mike, why don't you go next? We need it. There you go, unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Duke. I am Mike Parham. We recently bought a, excuse me, I can't see myself. There we go. And I can't see other people. We recently bought a Model Y, and it was the right car for us, I believe. We'd been watching the Tesla models and various other EV models come out. And for our needs as a younger family, we wanted to be able to drive to Bend without having to stop and charge. We wanted something that could haul snowboards and maybe a bike. So we wanted that longer range and a little more cargo space than something like a Model 3 or a hatchback might have. So yeah, the Model Y I think was right for us. One of the things that I didn't really appreciate before I got it was how much better the service experience has been. We had some minor issues with the car after about 2 or 3 months, and I opened up the Tesla app on my phone. I was able to make a service appointment on the phone just automatically by tapping, and then they came out like 3 days later. They literally drove to our house and fixed the car right in front of our house. I didn't have to drive to a dealer. I didn't have to leave it overnight. Effectively, everything was done through text messages. It was amazing because I didn't have to take any time or go out of my way to get the car serviced. Aside from that, I also like the thought that over the next couple of years, Tesla's software updates will continually improve the car, and we'll see new and interesting new features. Things like autopilot will automatically get better. And I've already noticed that with the car starting to respond to traffic lights and speed limit signs. It's really impressive to see the pace of change.
Good. Mike, thank you. Bob, let's hear what it's like to have a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to try and show some slides here. Just change my view here a bit. I'm going to talk about the Outlander plug-in hybrid. Duke has already talked a little bit about the difference between a plug-in hybrid and a conventional hybrid. You know, the Prius back in 1997 brought out the hybrid concept. And so it's a technology that's been around a while, but what is different about a plug-in hybrid is that you can charge the battery, which is a bit larger than something in a Prius, and it'll give you about 20 miles on electricity alone. And so when you take the car out in the morning, your first drive can be all electric. And if you need that extra mileage, the gas engine will cut in. So we love this car, and we find that because most of our trips, we're retired, we don't drive a lot, but most of our trips are in that 20-mile range. And in fact, if you look at all of the trips that people take, as shown in this graph, most of them, the distance shown here in mileage and the up and down shows the percentage. Most trips are below 10 miles. And in fact, most are even below 20 miles. So we can almost always take our everyday trips with this car without having to use any gasoline. And that was, of course, a big incentive for us. But another big incentive was that we have these two Labrador retrievers that need some extra space in the car. And this Outlander is a full-fledged SUV. And so we had an SUV before, a RAV4, and we're not impressed with the difference between the hybrid RAV4, which we had, and the conventional gas version. It's only about 4 or 5 miles per hour difference. So this car is actually rated at 74 miles per gallon. And you can actually do better than that if, depending on your style of driving. We went from February to August this year without adding any gas to the tank, just because most of our trips were short. But if you do need to take a longer trip, the advantage of a plug-in hybrid is that there's no range anxiety. You can go as far as with any other conventional gas car. And it has that extra room. This back deck is perfectly flat. You could sleep here if you wanted to. And then there's kind of one little feature that we haven't actually used yet, but I've not seen it on any other cars. You can actually plug in an electrical outlet to this battery. And so you could, if you're going to on a little picnic or something, you could put your microwave in the trunk here and plug it in and use it. And if there's a windstorm and you lose all the electricity in your home, you could plug in your freezer here and keep the gas engine recharging the battery and go for quite a long time on essentially an emergency electrical generator. Anyway, we haven't had to use that, but it's kind of a fun little feature I thought I'd mention.
Good. Okay. Well, let's see. We have some questions, and if you have a question and you want to ask one of our people, let's do that. You can put that in there. So Rick Horton says, "Are there any condo associations with chargers?" I'm not aware of any. What I will say, though, is that the city Sustainability Advisory Board, and Bob knows this because he's been involved in it, and I have been too, is getting a project going to look at multi-family housing charging. Condos are obviously part of it, apartments are. So we hope to have some strategies to deal with this. But Mary, maybe you've got somebody you know or not?
Yes, I actually know somebody who bought or has moved into the Carmen's apartments or senior living over there on Cruise and Boone's Ferry, and they have a charger, and she basically uses that to charge her car. And I know that the Windward actually has chargers as well. So I think it's really different places are definitely starting to put them in.
Very good point. You're right. The Windward does down in its basement. Okay, Another question. I'm sorry, did anybody else have? Okay, I didn't see. Another question for the Tesla. What happens if somebody steals your phone? Good question. The phone is only one way to access the car. In fact, when you get it, what you get is a black card with a RFID on it that you can use. So that's your backup. They also sell another device. So, but the phone is, at least I know that's what we usually do. Okay, let's see. Any suggestions for brands or features to look for in a 240 volt home charger? Anybody have an answer for that? Mike.
So when we bought the Y, we just had 110 in our garage, and it takes something like 48 hours to charge the Model Y on a 110. So we decided to put in a 240 volt outlet in the garage, and that'll charge the car at about 9 kilowatts per hour, and the Y holds 75. So you're talking about 7 or 8 hours to go from 0 to 100. Of course, you usually don't charge that much in one session, but that cost about $600, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it effectively means I can charge the car whenever I want, however much I want, and never have to charge in a public charger unless we're on a road trip for some reason.
Mary.
Let me answer. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a friend who has a Bolt, and instead of buying a charger that they put in the garage on their wall, what they did is they bought a charger, a 220 charger line that could be plugged directly into a 220 outlet. And that means that they can go to places where there is 220 provided, which I believe is including places like RV plugins. So that, you know, you just take your card with you. It has the outlet and it has the proper pieces to be able to get that car charged. So they never bought a internal one. And I think that's maybe about $200 to get something like that.
Let me talk about that. That's exactly what I did. We had an unused dryer outlet 220 and we plug into it. We can use it. We were recently at a state park, and a lot of state parks actually have 220 outlets because they support RVs. Someone asked about brands though, but a lot of the car companies provide brands. It's a service. So for example, Nissan had theirs. I'm sure Tesla has the charger. So probably the best thing to do from a brand standpoint is to look at the charger recommended by or provided by the actual electric car company.
Good. Somebody asks, can you talk about the cost associated with installing the home charger? I'll just quickly say, we bought the Tesla charger, it was $500. We had an electrician come in, it was another $500, so about $1,000. Anybody else have any other experiences?
That was my experience too, Duke. It was really pretty standard on that.
Okay. And Bob, a question for you. Are there any restrictions on towing weight on a plug-in hybrid?
Oh, good question.
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I've never thought about that. I think it's pretty much a conventional car in terms of weight and, you know, the way it's would be managed if it had to be towed. But I really can't answer that with any authority.
Anybody
I'll
else?
comment that the torque on electric cars is very high. Now, how that translates into pulling a trailer, I don't know, but the torque, electric engines have significant torque. We should be able to handle towing. Obviously, it's going to affect your range, though.
Yeah.
On a plug-in hybrid, it won't make as much difference because you got a gas engine.
Well, and if you look at Tesla's website, or Rivian has a truck coming out, they will specify their towing capacity. And you can imagine Elon Musk with Tesla always wants to top everybody else. So the last time I saw it, you could tow more with the new Cybertruck that's coming out than almost any other truck you can find around.
I may have misunderstood the question. I would thought this had to do with if your car broke down and had to be towed. Anyway, I guess that you're talking about towing like a home trailer or something like that. I think that it could manage most any, you know, typical kind of towing task like that, a small trailer. couldn't probably handle a great big one, but anyway, I think it would work out well.
Yeah, good.
I was going to say one thing. Tesla Y also has an option for a trailer hitch. So obviously that's designed for towing, and I'm sure they would give you, if you're interested in a Tesla Y with a hitch, they'd give you the information on how heavy you can tow.
Yeah. Bob, another question for you. What was the plug-in type for your Outlander?
Oh, well, it uses a conventional 110 volt plug, which we use. We don't have a special like level 2 charger, and we charge overnight, and it's always recharged, to the extent that it can be. It also has a place to plug in a very fast charger, which would get the thing charged in about 10, 15 minutes, but we haven't had occasion to use that.
Okay, good. Another question I've got here is, if someone steals your phone, can they steal your car? With Tesla, they have a number of safety precautions. One is you can set it up so that you have a PIN number that you can use. And the phone only works when you're close to the car. It uses Bluetooth. But it's not so easy to steal Teslas because they're trackable by Tesla. And if somebody, like with Jan and I, both of our phones can track our car. If somebody stole my phone, stole the car, we could look at Jan's phone, and we would know exactly where it is. We could call the police and tell them, go down here and you're going to find the car. So Teslas are some of the least stolen cars around. Okay, let me see what else we've got. Let's see, Sharon says, I'm a renter, so would I have to go into Lake Oswego to charge an EV? How do these chargers work? How much does it cost? Thanks. I mean, I can answer that, but anybody else want to take a crack at that or not?
Well, I'll take a crack at it. A lot of the chargers are free, actually. The ones at the Portland airport are free. I know PG&E has a whole set of chargers downtown that are free. Some of the parking garages in downtown Portland are free. The other ones, though, there are other commercial ones you have to pay. And I pay between about 5 and 10 cents per kilowatt on my home. When I charge at home, it's about 50 cents per kilowatt hour when you charge at a lot of the commercial ones. So it's about 5 times more if you're charging. I almost never charge at a charger because I charge at home. That being said, a lot of them are free, and it really varies.
Yeah, so for renters, that is a really good question. And as we mentioned earlier, in fact, that's probably the leading issue right now in the EV world is dealing with multifamily housing. A number of people will use public chargers here in Lake Oswego. The one on like Tom was saying, the one on A Street is free. It also turns out that the city pays less for electricity than residents do. So you could go to the charger at the maintenance center and you'll pay less there. It's 9 cents a kilowatt hour versus 12, 13 cents at home. The disadvantage is, you've got to either walk home or something like that. And other people will use superchargers right now. Okay.
So, Duke?
Yes, Mary, go ahead.
I have a friend who who lives in a condo up there near the Selwood Bridge, and there are laws within the certainly the Portland area that says that you can actually a member of a condo can get a installation for charging their cars, and that's something that the condo needs to support. So I know that that's something that is there in Portland. I don't know the status of that here in Lake Oswego.
Well, there's actually a state law that if you want your condo to put in a charger and you're willing to pay for it, that's the caveat.
Okay, yeah.
Then they do have to do that.
Yeah, so if you were getting a 220 with your own plug, that would certainly be one way of being able to help get a charging for that.
Yeah. Lynn Hannigan asks, she said, you said there are level 2 chargers popping up everywhere, but at 3 to 4 miles an hour, that would be an overnight charge, ? first of all, that's level 1 chargers at 3 to 4 miles. Level 2 is 30 to 40 miles an hour. So level 2 is what you want. Let me see, what are vehicle registration fees on an EV? I don't know that they're any different. Anybody know anything?
So, Mike.
They are a little more expensive, and that's just political horse trading. They decided to raise the price of EVs because they're getting less in a fuel tax.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
they decided
really
to make it the cost
out.
up front.
Okay, Marianne Kunkel says, I'm interested in the Tesla Y. However, I've heard from our insurance agents that clients have complaints about cars going in for body repair and serious work and not returning for months. Reliability is important to me. Is this info correct? Mike, I don't know if you've investigated this.
Well, the Model Y has only been out for 6 months. So if a car is going into the shop for months, that's kind of a scary issue. Tesla has always had a reputation of having, minor body fit issues and what have you. If a body panel is 4 millimeters instead of 3 millimeters, that's not something I care about. Our car looks fine. There's no obvious body fit issues or whatever. It had minor trim issues. I think lots of cars do. And they came out and repaired them really quickly when we pointed them out.
Yeah.
I have not heard of cars being stuck in the shop for months on end, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's true or not.
I guess what I would add is I've seen on Tesla blogs some time ago that was happening, but it seems like it's changed quite a bit. So I don't think that's quite the issue that it was. Tell you what, we've got a bunch more questions. So here's what I want to propose. We said we were going to end at 11. And for those of you that have to end, we will. I want to tell you though about our EV test drive challenge. And then for those of you that want to stay, we will continue answering more questions. So let me go back to the screen share for a moment. And so let's see if I can get this here. Okay, what I want to tell you about is we know that the best way to really understand these cars is to take an actual drive. And let me close some of this stuff down here so you can see some of this. And virtually, what I'm told is virtually every car dealer now offers contactless test drives. We did contact a number of dealers. And so I'm going to be sending out a list to everybody who's signed up for this with details of our challenge and people who will allow you to have a test drive. But here's the deal. If you take an EV test drive during the month of October and send us information at evdrive@losn.org, and I'll send this to you so you'll have it, and tell us about your experience. We're going to enter you in a drawing, and at the end of the month or early November, we're going to have a drawing for one person that will be able to get a Tesla of their choice overnight for 24 hours. And Jan and I had the benefit of this several years ago before the Model 3 came out. And boy, I'll tell you, this changed us. We couldn't afford the Model S, but boy, were we waiting for the Model 3 when it came out. The other thing I will be sending to you on our website, we have a page on electric vehicles. We have a list of EVs available in Oregon. We have a connection to Platt Auto that has a current inventory of what used EVs are available right now. We also have a link to EV chargers in Lake Oswego. These are basically level 3 and now level 2 and some level 3. And then we have a list of other questions that people frequently ask that we may not have gotten to. So for those of you that have to leave, thank you for coming. Please take a test drive. This is the best thing we can do right now for climate change, for the health of ourselves, for our children, for future generations, is electrify everything and start with your car. And you may not have thought you were ready for it, but go out and drive one and see if this isn't the right thing for you. So now let me go back, and Bob, Mike, let's get you up here. I'm going to go back to the questions. So Matt Schaefer says, if you had any, have you gotten over range anxiety, or have your spouses? How long did it take? Anybody want to? I can answer that, but anybody else want to answer that?
Well, I should probably answer it because I have the 90-mile range car,
Yeah.
and I really don't have an issue. The car tells me really exactly how many miles I have, the percentage of battery charge I have, and so I know, and I know how far I'm going on my trips. If I was going to try and drive over to Bend on 90-mile range, I'd have a heck of a lot of anxiety. But I don't do that. I use the car for going to the airport, going to Hillsborough, going downtown, doing errands.
Yeah.
I got over it really quickly. I got over it very quickly.
Yeah. That's really what I've heard from other people, and I know from us, that range anxiety goes away very quickly once you get a car. You realize there's a whole bunch of chargers around. We have a Tesla Model 3, as you saw. What's really sort of cool with the Tesla is when you plan a trip, it tells you what charger you need to go to, how long to charge. And for some reason you forget all this, it'll remind you, whoops, you got to go over here and charge it. And the idea that it takes, I don't know, 15, 20, even 30 minutes. I mean, I don't know. We're at a stage where we need bathroom breaks. We need to eat lunch. So none of that's really been an issue. Okay, let's see. Can you put a roof rack on a Model Y? Turns out that, well, Mike, do you want to answer that?
I'm not familiar. I assume there's a roof rack option. I know that there's a tow hitch option, but we've used roof racks before in the past on previous cars, and they added so much noise at freeway speeds that we just removed it. It wasn't worth the annoyance of the constant noise. So yeah, unfortunately, that's a long-winded way of saying I'm not sure.
Well, what I would add is yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
So we have a friend who just got a Tesla Y, and he said that Yakima has a rack.
Exactly.
He has not installed it, but it is available.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing. Yakima has a relationship with them. Now, I think you can also find out from the Tesla showroom what their recommendations are on that. Okay, let's go on here. Without engine braking, I think we're talking regenerative here, do you end up having to ride your brakes to slow down the car when driving downhill through mountains? In my Prius, it always felt like I'm driving in neutral down hills. Anybody have an answer for that?
So Duke, I love the way my car goes up to Mount Hood, and then when I'm coming back, I can just basically go all the way down. I've gone through Timberline down to Ripplebrook and all that way, and really, it is just a dream to drive through there. And it's all, I don't have to worry about the braking because I can just use my one pedal to really control everything. And then there's some ways to even be able to, there's a little paddle that allows me to put a little bit more stopping power in that also is, again, regenerating the battery. And all of this is without using your brakes. Your brakes just don't wear out the same as they would on a regular car.
I would second that. I don't know of any EV that doesn't have regenerative braking. You can turn it off. I don't know why you would, we never have. So I'm just like Mary. I mean, I personally never used the brake. So, okay, let's see. Bob, by being plug-in using both electric and gas, I'm assuming that this hybrid would have more maintenance and costs than 100% electric. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, we've had our car for a couple of years, and we've had sort of the similar kind of servicing routine that you would have with a regular gas car, and so we don't get that advantage that you have with all electric. And I presume that if you had the car long enough, that the that the maintenance bills would stack up. So anyway, but we're doing fine at this point with it. But I think that when we bought our car a couple of years ago, the lower priced all electrics were not yet available, and we wanted a car that would give us this electric capability without necessarily paying a bunch of money. Nowadays, it's going to be, I think, a little more likely that people are going to want all battery.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
The market seems to be shifting that way. Larry has a question. Talk about the types of charger plugs with car manufacturers. And he mentions the J1772, CCS, CHAdeMO. Tesla has a unique plug, but they also have, what do I want to say, things you can put on there too. Adapter, thank you. Adapter so that you can plug into a J772, which is usually a level 2 charger. Mary, what have you got?
So I got the J72, and what I understand after talking with Lisa is that this year they have the CHAdeMO. I mean, they also have a J72. That's just the 220. But when you do the fast charging, which is what I've got on my car, all the other cars, including Nissan, is going to be going to the one that is now on the Bolt. So there'll be a uniform fast charger option for people, and that's the CCS version instead of the CHAdeMO.
Electrify America, which is a supercharger or a level 3, has both kinds of charging capability if you go to the Bank of America parking lot.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
I was just going to add one comment here. The CHAdeMO is used for existing 440s, and I have that in my Leaf. It was an option. So I have 2 plugs, the 440 and then also the 220. So it's 2 different plugs in the car. And I think that's what a lot of cars come with. But it sounds like maybe that might be changing, hopefully. I mean, unification of chargers and charging plugs is an issue. And hopefully they're moving a little bit to some uniformity, but they're not there yet.
Okay. I'm looking, they're mostly just comments here. Let's see. Okay. Somebody said that Tesla indeed does have a roof rack. That's great. And Alex Mem from Clackamas County says Yakima is a certified leader in sustainability. Absolutely. That just let you know that they're doing a great job. In fact, as a side note, we're having a discussion with them about community solar coming up. So yeah, let me see if there's anything else. I don't see any other questions. So, well, thank you to my colleagues. I really appreciate this. I will be sending out a copy of the recording and links to this. I want to encourage everybody to take us up on this test drive. The sooner you get on board with an EV, the more fun you're going to have, the more you're going to help our community and your kids' future. So with that, thank you to Tom, to Mary, to Bob, Mike, and thank you to all of the people who attended. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Thanks.